Hello, everyone. Okay, as promised, we are going to break down the Sean Combs indictment, the United States versus Sean Combs. Wow, I've already been live on my own channel, Jared, because I just could not wait any longer. But the presser is going to start at 11:30. So while Jared breaks down some of the indictment, I'm just going to be making sure that I have all of that set up. So let me pull that up right now, and it's crazy. I mean, I knew this was coming. I really did. I was excited this was coming, but I can't believe it's actually happening. Hi, Taryn. Hi, Tommy. Thanks for joining
So
us, guys.
a lot
Okay.
of a lot of significant hello everyone. A lot of significant developments. The affidavit is it's 14 pages, basically breaking down the Combs enterprise. So let's, Lauren, if it's okay, because I don't want to miss anything, let's break down page by page of the
Go for
affidavit.
it.
This is straight up hot off the press.
Hmm.
I had an opportunity to glance at it, but federal affidavits, every word is essentially very significant. Some of the wording may seem curious to people, or you'd wonder why they throw certain things in and why they leave certain details out. The bottom line is the statutes that apply and that are in play here really dictate what needs to be said. So if we look at count one right out the gate is racketeering conspiracy. Racketeering is basically illegal activity with a group of people that is part of an organized crime network. Okay, so now we know we're going to expect a series of facts, basically breaking down the Diddy organization and then laying out the nature of their crimes. And that's exactly what we get here. So, first, it identifies Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy,
Yep.
also known as PD in Love. I've never heard him referred to as Love, so that was news
That's
to
his
me.
Instagram. It's so
But
stupid. Yeah.
so
Love.
Well, let me tell you, everything in this affidavit is everything but love.
Yep.
So essentially, and just for folks that are watching, like this is a serious series of claims about abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal
Mhm.
abuse at the hands of P. Diddy and his organization. So in the beginning, the defendant abused, threatened, coerced women and others to fulfill his own sexual desires, protect his interests,
Yep.
protect his business and reputation. And it goes right at here are the crimes: sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Those crimes are the kinds of crimes that feed back into that racketeering. They're essentially racketeering prerequisite crimes. So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
check two of those boxes, sometimes one of those boxes, during the course of your organization, we're back into this RICO charge, which is essentially the charge that brought down the mafia in the Southern District of New York, which is where this charge has been brought. Also significant, and we'll talk about that as well. So, paragraph 2 says that P. Diddy did these businesses headquartered at various times in Manhattan. The fact that that's there is basically telling the world why we're bringing this charge in the Southern District of Manhattan. It
Mhm.
also notes that he did operate in Los Angeles. That's not news to anyone, but the fact of the matter is the case could have really been brought in either place. The Southern District of New York knows the RICO statute. I mean, they invented its application through Rudy Giuliani's prosecution of the mafia throughout
Mhm.
the 1980s and early 90s. So,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
with that, we go on to page 2, where it starts with a list of Diddy's legitimate businesses, or believed to be legitimate businesses, which was
Right.
Bad
Right.
Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, Combs Global. And they're referred to collectively as the Combs businesses. That's the last
Yep.
time they're really mentioned specifically. And his businesses, those labels include record labels, recording studio, an apparel line, alcoholic spirits businesses, a marketing agency, a television network, and a media company. None of which is a surprise to us. These are the things that P. Diddy basically wore on his chest. This was the nature of the business he was in. So all of those businesses together are part of what they're saying was a criminal organization.
Hmm.
Um, and here's where things get very, very dark. Uh, Essentially, it begins to lay out the fact that the nature of Diddy's crime essentially was, in part, abuse of women through the use of paid male sex workers who were brought oftentimes across state lines to, we'll get into later, hotels, oftentimes his property. They were provided with narcotics, also a federal violation, and they participated in these sex parties, which they call freak-offs later, and they're described later, and we'll get to that. But basically, under the threat of intimidation or the removal of financial support or the destruction of one's career, Diddy exploited women and forced them to engage. The allegation is forced them to engage in sex with these sex workers while he was present. So that is essential, and that's not new news, but that is now part of an affidavit.
Let me stop you because it's going to start in 10 minutes. So I want to get through, like, because this is, I had said this previously, a lot of this we knew about. This has been documented and listed in some of the other lawsuits. It's essentially almost like just mirroring Cassie's lawsuit with the freak offs and all of this stuff. I think that what would be helpful is for you to sort of describe exactly with these charges, the RICO charge, the federal sex trafficking charge, and the transporting a prostitution charge. What do these hold for him? What kind of sentences would these hold? Do you think he's going to be released? Are we going to hear this? I mean, is he going to be held without bail until a trial? This is all what I think a lot of people are wondering.
So a couple of things. Here's the new news, though, in the indictment that we didn't hear before. They recovered 3 AR-15s at his house and a drum, drum magazine, which they say the AR-15s had obliterated serial numbers. So that's very serious. That's one thing we did not know.
Point that out. What page is that? Do you
That's
know?
at page 8.
Okay.
So let me say this. When you start to find multi-jurisdictional, bi-coastal organizations with obliterated AR-15 guns, the arguments for letting Diddy out or keeping him in while these charges are pending are pretty strong. This is somebody with access to planes. I mean, he sings about his access to jets and flies all over the world. There is a good case to be made that Diddy is a flight risk. He's now charged. He's facing these serious charges. In addition to that, there's allegations that since late 2023, when all of this stuff broke under the Cassie Ventura lawsuit, he engaged in a pattern of obstruction, trying to intimidate and pay off witnesses, which is another factor that would be considered in not letting him out on bail. Now, his attorney is already starting to set the table for the bail argument. He came to New York knowing he was going to be arrested. He turned himself in. I love when attorneys say this, like, it was either you turn yourself in or we come and get you. You know what I mean? It was like, thanks, but no thanks. It's like, okay, well, we showed you the entire Homeland Security could come pick you up, so again, that doesn't mean he's innocent. And I don't mean to run down his lawyer. Obviously, Diddy has a right to counsel. What else is his lawyer going to say?
But and Jared,
here,
let me ask you, what's the reason for somebody to deface the serial number on their AR-15? I wonder.
Well, first of all, defacing, couple things. Number one, the man who just shot or attempted to assassinate President Trump had an obliterated serial number. The bottom line is you can't trace the firearm when it's obliterated, and it is a very serious federal offense to do that. So why would somebody not want their firearm traced? You figure that out.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Oh, yeah. No, I hope that came across as sarcasm.
But the other thing is, so what is he facing? He's facing decades in federal prison. There is a good chance, his attorney, ironically enough, represented Keith Raniere, if you remember that case with that NXIBM company that was like a cult situation. That guy got 120 years for similar charges. So you're talking about Diddy is staring down the barrel of life, the rest of his natural life in prison if he's convicted. These are no joke. I mean, you're talking striking, kicking, dragging women. You're talking about drugging women, imprisoning them, You're talking about arson, all these crazy, crazy charges wrapped into a RICO charge, which is like, not only did you do this, you did this over a period of years and as part of an organization which included your household staff, individuals that work for your company, your security staff, and all of you and these individuals engaged in these patterns of intimidation and threats and violence. Ironically, this entire document, none of his team are named personally, which says to me, very high-ranking members, and the chart is essentially spelled out. Diddy's at the top. There's not a second name mentioned. Do you know why? To me, that says the top-ranking members of that organization are talking.
Yeah.
I would say, it's speculation at this point, but why wouldn't they be named? When that organization, you'll see they at page 3, they start to talk about the organization itself. They put Diddy at the top. Oftentimes in the mafia type affidavits, you would have individuals like John Gotti at the top, Sammy the Bull Gravano second, and it would just flow from there. Who was part of the Capo regime and all that. You don't have that here. That is something that's missing. And the fact that it's missing suggests to me that either those cases are still being put together or those individuals are being worked with, and they're working on the charges that may befall them.
Yeah. I mean, I saw some of the stuff that they're alleging with like the kidnap and the arson. I immediately thought of Kamora Simmons, because after she posted about Diddy last year, when he settled with Cassie, she put this post up on Instagram. Literally, her house was set on fire with her children inside. I'm not saying that's Diddy, but I mean, arson, there you go.
It's funny you should say that too, because the arson itself isn't spelled out, but it is pled, and he's accused of that. Also at the very end, and some people may miss this, there's some repetition in this document, but at the end, they're forfeiting his assets. They're saying anything that's a derivative of these businesses, okay? All cars, all houses, all cash, all holdings will be forfeited. If you got rid of those and disposed them over the past several months, we're coming after anything in your name because you did that. So he's running the risk right now. Diddy is accused of major crimes, losing his freedom, and now losing his fortune. I mean, it is a rainy day in Diddy's world. I mean, these are horrible crimes. This is no joke. And he is going to have to build a defense. We're talking about friends of his. Here's another thing. There were recordings of the sex acts. Okay. Yeah. Good luck getting around that. Also alleged recordings of the intimidation of witnesses. So that is not good.
Right. And so no, you're right. And I thought of this after. They actually do have a confirmed arson with Diddy, because I totally forgot as we're talking, he blew up Kid Cudi's car. And I think at this point, Kid Cudi would feel safe enough to go on record and be like, yep, you blew up my car.
Well, that's not in here. That's my
no, but
point.
I'm saying the arson, the whole arson thing, that's definitely what it has to be referring to. And so do you think he saw all this coming, Jarrett? So that's why he decided to put his house on the market and
there's no doubt he would have received, in all likelihood, he would have received a target letter from the grand jury. His attorneys would have been aware of who's being called before the grand jury. So he did see this coming.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I mean, you have to feel like a dead man walking when after that raid, he knows they got those guns. He knows they found drugs in there. He knows they found those recordings. So he knew, it was inevitable at that point.
And Adria English, she had the lawsuit right before Dawn Richard of Danity Kane. She said that he had cameras in every single room, at least at his house in the Hamptons, that she saw. So
And again, all of those things are used to intimidate and to set people up and to use them to blackmail. All of that is in here. I mean, so again, looking at arguing against him being bailed out, those are the kind of things I would say he utilized in an effort to obstruct justice, not only commit crimes, but hinder the investigators and then intimidate potential witnesses. That's a huge issue. When the federal judges hear that, they say, look, Judge, I mean, this guy has engaged in a pattern trying to intimidate people that are trying to do the right thing. So
Right,
that is
right.
very scary. It looks like they're about to get started. But
I think so. Let's see. Yeah, I wonder who he tried to, I want to say pay off, or who he tried to
well,
bribe.
and you have to look at it through the lens of there are 10 civil lawsuits pending against him alleging sexual abuse. So
Yeah, yeah,
So first of all, those are about money. Not to say that their only motivation, the only motivation of our victims is money. I'm not suggesting that. But when you're in the
yeah,
civil realm, you are seeking financial damages. So
yeah, yeah.
first and foremost, if he resolved any of those cases, that's
Good
different than what
afternoon,
we're
everybody.
talking
We're going
about
to
in
start the
witness intimidation.
Sean Combs press
Right.
conference in
Oh,
about
starting here.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
If you have any questions about presentment, I'll come back out and we'll go over timing and give you a few updates. Thanks.
Okay.
So again, we're not talking about resolving civil lawsuits. We're talking about potentially attempts to bribe witnesses, and then any further threats against witnesses with
Right.
physical harm would be a huge issue for a federal judge to hear whether or not he's going to get bail. Couple
Yeah,
of things.
yeah.
I think there's a chance he won't get bail. In the event that he does, it's going to be extraordinarily a high bail. And with the caveat that I'm sure he's going to be on electronic monitoring and having to report back to a federal officer on a daily basis. His
Would
travel
anyone
will be
else
curtailed.
get bail though, Jarrett? Like, would anyone else in the world have a racketeering, sex trafficking? I mean, really? That to me is like
Well,
really shitty. If
look, it's a case by case thing. He's entitled to a couple of things here. He's entitled to, the presumption of innocence. He's entitled to bail, or at least
yeah,
an argument for bail. But remember, when we talked about Matthew Farwell, remember that
yeah,
document, and that hearing was pulled, if you remember,
yep,
whether or not he was going to be held pre-trial. These are the same kinds of arguments, although it's not a homicide charge, you could make against P. Diddy.
yeah. And I think we were discussing before, Taryn and I and a couple people on my chat. It's like he has so much money. He has private jets. I mean, he has means to literally flee, go to a private island, and never be heard from again. So let's keep this guy right where he is.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are certainly factors that the court has to consider as to whether or not he's a true flight risk. He has the means. How many people have what P. Diddy has?
Exactly.
And, again, those are the things. Oh, looks like we're starting.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal.
Aw.
In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating
All heard
their
this, but
physical
yeah,
appearance.
it's gross.
Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant,
Oh God.
extra linens, and lighting.
And liquid IV.
When the hotel rooms got
Found that.
damaged,
That's freak off
they helped clean
material.
it up.
Yeah.
They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers.
What is that?
The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs's crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs's residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs's electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
Wow.
Here are some of the items
Oh
that
my
we
God.
recovered during the searches.
Wow, wow, wow.
This is where you're going to see the liquid IV.
As you
the
can
guns.
see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there.
Wow.
Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be.
Well
No
said.
one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City.
Wow.
Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done.
Oh.
This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SCNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SCNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smeisler, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleepter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Aaron Katursky, ABC.
Thanks, Nick. Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Thank you. Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher, Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now, but the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
One more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up, and yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. 2 questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points, but we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
That's a good question.
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliette Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and they were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from. It's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it.
Saw that. Cassie?
That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
Ooh.
John Anise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residence? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Well, look, I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s, 2 of the 3 DeFace AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts, along with magazines, with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs's safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case. And I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that, or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs' attorney said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally and with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity, and it no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Mike Sisak, AP.
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan last night, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given, they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations. Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
Again, I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I think that's it. So I texted you, Jarrett. What is a detention memo that one
That's
reporter?
the same thing we talked about in Matthew Farwell. Same document.
Okay.
Basically, that the
okay.
U.S. attorney is going to file a document setting out the reasons why they believe Diddy needs to be detained pending the charges. So one of the things that U.S. Attorney Williams said was these charges carry a presumption of detention. They're so serious that you are presumed to be detained unless you can make. So that puts the burden on Diddy to say why he should be let out.
Okay.
They're going to say, look, he has a family. Maybe he has strong ties to the community. He has never not appeared for a court proceeding. These are the things that they're going to say. But the court, as we discussed earlier, are going to look at the nature of the charges, very, very serious, the obstruction, the possession of these weapons, the recording and the blackmail, all of those things, just the breadth of the conspiracy itself, the fact that it is in LA, New York, and Miami, all of these things would suggest to a judge, if I'm sitting as a judge, I wouldn't grant bail. I would say, look, you are a flight risk. You knew these charges were coming. This has been going on for years. They're very serious. And I would hold him because I do believe that when you look at the nature of his conduct, it was escalating, ongoing, and even in the face of this stuff coming out publicly, he doubled down. He started to intimidate witnesses, and there's 10 pending civil suits. So I don't know. To me, I think Diddy's staying right exactly where he's at.
Yeah, no, I'm looking if there's a press conference outside of the courthouse right now. Let me pull up maybe New York. No, ABC 7 seemed to have pretty aggressive coverage on this. Let's see. I don't see anyone live. Taryn, do you see anything? Let me know. I'm searching.
It sounded like it's coming up a little later this afternoon. So
yeah, I mean, so like I mentioned that most arraignments, federal arraignments on Pearl Street happen at 2 p.m., but they said, oh, it's this morning. So I'm like, what's going on? Yeah, I'm searching. Oh wait, ABC is no, that's just.
Yeah, you're going to see feeds after that press conference anyway. So
yeah, right. I'm just looking.
It doesn't appear that he's coming into court at this moment.
Yeah, I saw his children go into court. I think it was just his sons. I didn't see any females. I didn't look that hard. But I'm gonna look for one more second. ABC. Nope. Everyone's just kind of. AP's got. Let me see. I'll pull up ABC 7 for a minute, or sorry, AP just for a second.
So AP had Mike Sisak there at the presser. So he'd be going over to the court. That's
yeah. They'd be, let me see. Yeah, this is done.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's happening. Now, I'm in the bottom. What to expect for the rest of the day? He's going to be brought into court. His attorney's going to ask for. I loved, a lot of we certainly shared the same sentiments as the U.S. attorney on the charges and the loose application of the word cooperation.
I know,
so
that was funny.
Again,
that was really funny.
If you blame defense attorneys, what are you going to do? It's the way it goes. So.
If
he goes in there and tries to start arguing that in front of the federal judge, good luck. That's not really going to carry the day.
Right.
But I would be surprised. I'm going to tell you, I would be surprised looking at these charges if he's released.
Yeah, me too. I really want to know. This is driving me crazy. And Trial Junkies, they did say 11:30 a.m., but it's Eastern time. So that's why the presser just happened. You must be on the West Coast or something. Yeah, I know, Taryn. I know what you're talking about. I just think that everybody might be waiting down there, but I'm not sure. So let's see. I want to just double check one more time before we put this to bed for now. Yeah. I guess we'll just wait and see, and I'll try to update everybody on Twitter and everything. And if anything else, let me see.
If I'm not on, it just means I have to go back to work, but I'm watching.
Yeah, right. I know.
We'll continue. Obviously, we'll continue to discuss this case. Very serious, very sad. Here's an individual that, was believed to be living the American dream. I mean, it was just what a downfall.
Yeah.
And it's far from over. But look, if you're a betting person, Diddy is going to spend the rest of his life behind bars.
You really think so?
Yeah, I don't see, again, obviously these are allegations, but this is not good. None of this is good. They're very, very serious. And this is a great team in that U.S. Attorney's Office as well. Mostly female, if you heard the names.
Yeah.
No joke. These are the best prosecutors in the country. It's a lot for a guy like me to say that, but I see what this team's done. So
right.
So, they better bring their A game.
Wow. And Shay, you must be joining a little bit late. There is something about arson a few times in the indictment. I was just speculating.
It sounds like U.S. Attorney Williams said there is additional facts in the detention memo, which is telling the judge why those facts are there as opposed to in the affidavit. They're saying the information they're providing the judge is to equip he or she with enough information to make a determination of how much of a risk Diddy is. So if there are claims about the arson itself in there, you're saying, look, this is what these folks are capable of. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, arson, kidnapping, there's all these different claims. Yeah, no, it's really gross. I think also it's like, Cassie, my gosh, if I had to thank anybody here, it's like, hey, Cassie, great job in being the first one to come forward here. And as much as I really don't like her as a governor, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who implemented the 1-year look back. I mean, we all know that she did that just so she could get E. Jean Carroll to prosecute, to go against Trump. And that's literally why she did it. But we got Diddy out of this too. So I'm going to go ahead and give her a round of applause for that, because that, I think, really made a huge difference here. So with that said, we'll keep everyone posted. You guys know I am all over this. I have just been giddy. If as weird as that sounds, so giddy because I just want him going down. So, and yes, love, that's exactly what I had said earlier. And I think that Kid Cudi will be ready to go on record and say this. So
that's probably what it is.
No, definitely. Kid Cudi and Cassie were emailing when Diddy and Cassie were taking a break, and he made these threats. Diddy also made threats against the guy that Cassie was starring in the Step Up movie with. And if you see this guy, you're going to be like, what? He's like this blonde hair, blue eyed, like little, I don't know, yuppie kid. He probably was like, seriously, who is this? What's going on? Don't worry. I'm not going to touch her. Oh my gosh. Gretchen, you're crazy. I love it. I'm giddy for Diddy. That was the worst, but also the best. Okay. All right, guys. We will talk to you later. And thanks for joining us. Jerry, you can get
Thank
back
you.
to work now. Bye.